Today, gas in America is the most expensive it's been in years. Americans haven't paid this much since the spike of 2022.
But what's happening is people are learning to buy oil from the United States. I mean, they're making the trip. I also thought oil would go up to 200, 250, maybe 300. And I knew it would be short term. But I looked today, it's like at 102. And that's a very small price to pay for getting rid of a nuclear weapon from people that are really mentally deranged.
Donald Trump says America has plenty of oil. He's been saying it for years, and on that, he's not wrong. Last year, America produced 13.6 million barrels of oil every day, a new record, more oil than any country in human history. And yet, here we are, gas prices at multi-year highs. Americans paying more at the pump than they have since 2022. The most oil ever produced, but it's the highest prices we've seen in years. How is this even possible? Here's the first thing most Americans don't know about oil. It's not like other things. Oil is a global commodity. The price you pay at the pump in Houston or Atlanta isn't set by America. It's set by the world. And that means when supply gets disrupted anywhere on the planet, Americans pay more, even when the disruption has nothing to do with us. Take what's happening right now. About 20% of the world's oil supply has been pulled off the market because of conflict in the Persian Gulf. 20 million barrels every day, gone. And every country that needs oil is now competing for what's left. Here's where it gets strange. The United States doesn't buy oil from Iran, not a drop. And we barely buy from the broader Persian Gulf at all. Only about 2% of our oil comes from that entire region. And yet, when those barrels disappear half a planet away, Americans still pay more, because the price of oil is global. But here's where it gets stranger. America doesn't keep most of the oil it produces. Last month, the U.S. exported nearly 12 million barrels of oil every day. Yet, we imported nearly 8 million. Why? Because the oil America drills isn't the oil America's refineries are built for. Most of the oil pumping out of the Permian Basin in Texas is what's called light sweet crude. Easy to refine, high value. But most American refineries, especially along the Gulf Coast, were built for the opposite. Heavy crude, thick, high in sulfur. The kind that comes from Canada, Mexico, and the Middle East. Why? Because most American refineries were built decades ago, when most of America's oil came from somewhere else. Today, America produces more oil than any country in human history. But to refine it, we still depend on the rest of the world. So, why don't we just build refineries for our own oil? We could. But each one costs hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions, and takes years to build. The last new major American refinery came online in 1977, almost 50 years ago. Earlier this year, President Trump announced a new refinery in Brownsville, Texas. Construction won't even begin until later this year, and it'll take years after that before it produces fuel. Until then, the companies that could build them aren't. Why? Because the system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way someone wants it to. And to understand who, we have to follow the money. When gas prices rise, the obvious question becomes, who's getting rich? But the first 3 months of 2026 told a different story. ExxonMobil, America's biggest oil company, reported $4.2 billion in profits, down 46% from a year earlier. Chevron reported $2.2 billion, down 37%. At first glance, the oil giants weren't getting rich. They were taking a hit. But that's only the first glance. Before we dive into that, let's look at Europe's oil companies. They told a completely different story. BP, the British oil giant, saw its profits more than double. BP called the performance exceptional. Total Energies in Paris reported a more than 50% jump. Same war, same global market, different results. So, why did America's giants take a hit while Europe soared? It's because of hedging. Financial bets that protect against price drops. When prices surged faster than expected, those bets backfired. But for the rest of 2026, Wall Street expects ExxonMobil's profits to more than double, Chevron's to triple, their best year since 2022, the year gas hit $5.02. And while Americans pay more at the pump, oil companies are sending billions back to their shareholders. ExxonMobil alone, $20 billion in stock buybacks every year, plus another $17 billion in dividends. So, are they price gouging us? Technically, no. The global market sets the price. But they're profiting from a crisis they have zero incentive to fix. When you ask Americans who sets the price of gas, the obvious answer is big oil. But the truth is more complicated. The price you pay isn't set by one player, it's set by several. And not all of them are who you'd guess. The first is the people who pump the oil out of the ground. For decades, the most powerful group has been OPEC+, a coalition of oil-producing nations that together control nearly half of the world's supply. They decide how much to pump, and they coordinate to keep prices where they want them. But today, the United States is the biggest producer in the world, and our oil giants, Exxon, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, now shape global supply with every decision they make. The second player that shapes the price of gasoline are the people who actually turn it into gas, the refiners. We already saw why they haven't built refineries for our own oil. The current system makes them more money, so they don't change it. The last, but the most surprising player isn't a producer or a refiner. It's a trader. More than a third of all oil futures contracts are held by speculators. Not buyers, not sellers, just bets. And those bets move the price. Depending on where you live, gas costs more or less. California sits at the top, southern states at the bottom. Every state has its own price setters, taxes, environmental rules, special fuel blends, isolated markets, layers stacked on top of the global system. So, who's setting the price? Everyone. And none of them are on your side. Which leaves one question. When do prices finally come down? There is something a president can do to lower gas prices. It's called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, underground salt caverns in Texas and Louisiana, holding the country's emergency supply of oil. On March 11th of this year, Trump did exactly that by releasing 172 million barrels from this reserve, bringing it to its lowest level since 1982. And it barely moved the needle. Why did it not do more? Because even if Trump released every barrel in the reserve, it would equal 3 weeks of normal Hormuz flow, the biggest energy crisis in history, attempting to be fixed by a reserve too small to fix it. Trump has another answer: drill more. The logic? More American oil means lower prices. But there's a problem. American oil companies aren't drilling more. Even with oil prices at multi-year highs, the U.S. rig count is going down. Why down? Because they don't trust the prices will hold. The president's plan to lower prices requires the very people who set the prices to play along. And they aren't doing that. Even if the war ended tomorrow, the relief at the pump wouldn't come tomorrow. When oil prices spike, gas prices follow within days. But when oil falls, gas stations work through expensive inventory first, before passing savings on to you. And this isn't just about gas. Diesel, the fuel that moves America's trucks, food, and freight, has climbed even faster than gas. Even Americans who don't drive are paying for this war. So, when will gas prices actually come down? Not soon. Not without changes to a system designed against you. And the people who built it are counting on 3 things. That you'll keep driving, that you'll keep paying, and that you'll keep believing this is just how it is. Two of those are true, the third is a choice.